Reggie here, your friendly neighborhood bodybuilder and comic book collector, and I want to welcome you to another one of my videos. In this video, I am going to talk about 5 practical things that you should think about if you are looking to integrate yourself into the comic book community. And I will tell you that a lot of what I'm going to cover in this video is honestly derived from my own experiences and observations with the comic book community. And so this is not going to be an exhaustive list, but I certainly would encourage anyone out there watching this video that has some additional tips and pointers to make sure to drop those in the comment section, because I think we can all continue to learn from one another, which goes to enhancing the community overall. With that said, let's get to the 5 tips. This video is sponsored by Shortbox, the easiest way to buy and sell graded comic books. Tip number 1, reputation matters. And this is something that I have observed from the very beginning of me being in this community. Your reputation matters. And in some cases, it actually precedes you depending upon what you might be doing in the comic book community. So for example, if you are a person that sells comics, then a lot of folks will have heard of you potentially long before you ever have an interaction with that person directly, because they may have heard from someone else that has bought a book from you, whether you're a good seller or a bad seller. So reputation really does go a long way. And to that point, whenever you're interacting with somebody from the comic book community, you definitely want to be on your best behavior, right? I mean, I don't think that there's anything wrong with having a bad day or having a disagreement, but it's how you go about it that I think really matters. But if you're having interactions with people, either face-to-face, in the LCS, over email, over text messages, over social media, whatever it happens to be, you want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward, because again, people will hear about it. And if you're a good person and you're doing good things, rest assured that people will know that as well. Tip number 2, be generous. And this is honestly something that took me by surprise when I first joined the comic book community. Somebody wanted to send me an AOK. An AOK is an act of kindness. And I didn't know what that was, to be honest with you. Back in, the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, when I came back to the hobby, I had no clue what an AOK was. And I honestly found it extremely weird. I didn't know what to make of it. Somebody you want to give me a gift. For why? I don't even know. It took me a while to wrap my mind around it. But what I have learned over the last few years is that the comic book community is extremely generous. There are so many amazing people out there that it really is mind-boggling, And I think there are lots of different ways that I believe that people can be generous. You can be generous with AOKs. You can be generous with your words, with your praise, with your time, right? There are lots of ways to demonstrate your generosity that don't involve you giving something of value to someone else in terms of a tangible asset. And I've said this before, as a content creator who has somewhat of a busy life, I still try to make myself available to other YouTube channels that are trying to put out content and want me to be a guest, because the thing is, you can't be part of the community if you're not giving back to the community in some way, shape, or form. Tip number 3 is to be humble. And this is honestly something that I also learned early on when I made some mistakes in some videos that I created where I mispronounced Galactus's name. And the truth is, I didn't know how to pronounce his name, honestly, because I had never ever said it out loud until I was recording a video. But humility will go a very, very long way in this community, even if you know a lot. And I say that because I am consistently surprised by just how much other people know about comics as a whole, or a specific genre, or a specific creator, or something related to this hobby. And by keeping an open mind and being humble and receptive to other people's positions and thoughts and knowledge, it actually puts you in a really great place. Because if you put yourself on a pedestal where you're saying you are the expert, then that in some ways will set you up for a fall when that other person comes in that knows a little bit more than you. So humility, consider it. Tip number 4, which ties to the previous tip, is the idea that there is no wrong way to do this hobby, right? So it's about humbling oneself and allowing other people to decide what's right for them. Instead of imposing your will on other people, allow people to explore this hobby and to find out where they actually fit in. And again, this is something that I've seen over the last few years. There are so many different types of people out there that choose to collect in different ways, in a way that is very different to me and possibly even confusing to me, but it makes them happy. And so by allowing people to just be who they are and experience this hobby the way that they choose to, it allows for more people to come into the hobby and then find out where they fit. Because the truth is that just because, for example, that someone may be a cover hunter, right? A person that does not read the comic, just buys it for the art, doesn't mean that that's all that they will ever become. Potentially, through exposure to other people, exposure to the hobby, they may go from being a cover hunter to someone that actually reads the comics and then ultimately collects them for the stories and, all that kind of stuff. So the thing is, allow people to be who they are. Don't impose yourself on them, but help them should they have questions or want to understand why you do what you do. Tip number 5, show up to support other people. And what I can tell you is that while this may seem like a small community, it is actually a lot of people. I really do believe that the comic book community is relatively large. But it feels small because there are so many things that actually tie us to one another, whether it be face-to-face meetings or LCSs or social media or YouTube. We are in many ways all kind of integrated. And because of that, it is important that we also show up to support one another. When people are looking for books, help them out. When people are having financial problems, because that happens, help them out. When people are having medical issues, help them out. And I can tell you, in every single one of those instances that I just mentioned, I can name countless occurrences in which people have rallied to support one another. And in my mind, that is what a community is all about. It is a mass of people that are connected but support one another through those connections. And if you are out there, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. You can probably cite several of your own examples of how the community has rallied to support one another. And I'm not talking about well-known YouTubers or Instagrammers or anything. I'm talking about regular members of this community. If there is a rally cry that someone needs help, rest assured that people will come running with their hand up to make magic happen. And again, these are just 5 things that come to my mind that I think that we can all potentially do to continue to strengthen this community, to continue integrating ourselves into this community. But rest assured that I think down in the comment section, there are going to be a ton of other tips and pointers that people offer up. And I'm honestly looking forward to reading some of those things. If you need to reach out to me, again, member of the community, if you need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.